My next video is going to be on, or this video is going to be on creating a histogram and cleaning it in Excel. Some of the tricks that I've found just to create a histogram that I have more control over. Now, the way I'm going to do this is home, color that in. Okay, cool. So that's the step we're on. Okay, here is some data. Now, in this particular case, I found some data which is a bit weird. It just kind of sticks out from the rest. You know what? At this stage, I'm just going to keep it in there. I might choose to remove it. It really depends on what I'm trying to achieve. The focus of this video is not why I would do that. The focus on this video is just how to get a histogram on. To get a histogram, a frequency histogram, I want to select all my data, and I can select the heading as well. That's okay. And I go to Insert, and there's this button here at the top, which is this is your statistical charts, and here I can choose histogram. Now, when I insert a histogram, Excel's automatically calculated for me what intervals to use. Maybe I don't like these intervals. Now, this particular video, Excel is still going to limit you to the intervals of the range of data. So this data goes from 20 as the smallest to 162 as the maximum. And Excel's going to try to enforce some kind of even intervals around that. To control the intervals, now on Mac it's different to Windows, so this is really more of a PC thing. In Mac, I think you have to like select the bars and double click the bars or something. On PC, I'm going to double click this bottom axis here, and it's going to come up with, on the right, you'll see I have format axis, axis options. Now, sometimes you might click somewhere and it brings up this window on the right and you can't see the axis options. So these are just different tabs with different settings you can make for the axis. Right now we want this one here, which is the axis options or the data axis. In Excel, now here my data, I'm looking at my data, it's going from 20 to 162. Honestly, I would like my data in intervals of 1. So I can go bin width 1. And when I do that, ta-da, I have intervals of 1. Now, this is a bit ugly because there's some data way on, sorry, there's some data right on the end there, which is really making my graph really squishy. So I'm going to go back to my axis, and I'm going to choose under axis options, I'm going to create what's called an overflow bin. Think of your overflow bin as the maximum. And I don't really want to see like just anything above 30 looks like a good number. Anything above 30, just put it in one bar. So this is going to capture all my extreme values. And anything, now here it's automatically created at 20, but maybe I don't want it to start at 20. Maybe I want it to start at a different value. And I can create what's called an underflow bin, which is like the minimum value you want to start with. Okay, while I'm here, that's pretty much all that's needed to control you can just experiment with these settings here to control your histogram and get this settings you want at the bottom, the intervals you want at the bottom. I'm not going to go into details on giving it a good title, giving it axis labels and stuff like that. That's the purpose of this is just to get the most fundamental clean histogram going. Okay, last thing before I go, just to note, now there is a bit of an art to a histogram. If I said I want bin intervals of 5, 20, 25, 25, 30, everything above 30, the problem with having broad intervals is that it's hard to see the data distribution. But if I make my intervals, now this data is not too bad. I set my interval as 1. I can now this is not a lot of data, but I can kind of see a distribution here. There's that kind of typical distribution, it starts low, goes high, goes down again happening in the middle. If I went to an interval width of 3, I lose that definition. So there's a common question I get is what intervals do you choose? Well, you need to experiment with these bin widths until you can see if I make the bin width too small, so say I go 0.1 as my bin width, I'm now going to get all this really spread out data and it's really hard to see patterns. Our goal is to see patterns, so you need to experiment with this until you can see a possible pattern. And I'd probably say 1 for this data is a good option, but if I had a broader data set, I might be looking at a 5 or a 10, so long as I can get, well, this is still not a great distribution. I'd rather see about 6 or 7 bars making a nice little curve, but that's just the data I have. All right, that's everything on the basics of a histogram.